So this has been the biggest news in the NBA during the last week.
Dude, you could have given it to Kobe. You could have given it to Shaq. You could have given it to Tim Duncan. They gave it to Steve Nash. It's not because he was white.
It was just a strange thing. It was just a strange.
But why did you cut it off at 1990 though? Because that was convenient. That was convenient.
I'm just saying.
That was convenient.
Hold on, time out. It was just a strange thing that it just happened. It was just a strange thing.
So I don't usually make this kind of videos, but I just had to say something about this. So Nikola Jokic, guys, sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrongly. I'm an African guy. Jokic is about to win his third straight MVP. I just don't see any way he does not win it. And saying that sounds really, really ridiculous to me. Seriously. Jokic would win 3 MVPs. He would be the first guy to win three straight MVPs since Larry Bird. And to make matters worse, this MVP is probably the one that he deserves the most out of the 3 that he will probably win. And it's really annoying because this whole thing has been blown out of proportion in terms of what Kendrick Perkins is saying and bringing in the red card, which is like something that a lot of people always like bringing in everything that has to do with black and white. But as an NBA fan that resides in Africa, I'm not going through any racial anything whatsoever. So this is just my objective opinion about this. Perkins is kind of right. It's because what I've seen with Jokic in his MVP seasons has been that the goalpost has been moved in all the years that he has won the MVP, including this year. The goalpost has just been moved. The fact that Nikola Jokic is on the verge of having the same number of MVPs as Kobe, Shaq, and Kevin Durant combined is ridiculous. No matter how you see it, you may be a Jokic fan, you may be an analytics fan, someone that follows this analytics stuff, this stats obsession. But sound of that is weird. Jokic, same number of MVPs as Kobe, Shaq, and Kevin Durant. That is not right. I just know a world in which that sounds right to me. And this is not about race or anything. In all 3 years that Jokic will probably win the MVP now, has there been any year that he has even been looked at a top 2 best player in the league? Nobody has ever really looked at Jokic as the best player in the league. Nobody. Even now that they're topping the conference, Denver are topping the conference, is anybody really thinking that Jokic will get to the finals? Even with all his teammates fit, nobody's really looking at Denver as a team that will get to the finals. One of the reasons for that is in the playoffs, Jokic is always targeted defensively. Now, offensively, he's going to put up his numbers, and that would cloud everybody's judgment. Just like how in almost all the sports now, stats is the only thing that people take as something that is important. He will get his stats, and I'm not trying to sound like Perkins here saying that he pads his stats, but he will get his stats because he's that talented. He's going to get his assists. He's a very, very good passer. He's 7 feet tall. He's going to get the rebounds just by default of being 7 feet tall. Now, I'm not saying that everybody that is 7 feet tall can get rebounds. However, when you're 7 feet tall, most of the time rebounds come to you just by you just being there. So he will get his rebounds, he will get his assists, so that will start to look incredible, and he will score some points, and he will score it efficiently. But defensively, he's always targeted. That is why the Nuggets will never go anywhere in terms of winning the title. And there's a reason why if you look at the top 10 greatest players of all time in the NBA, all of them, in terms of the consensus top 10, all of them were good defensively. They were two-way players. Anyway, let's get into this debate by Redick and Perkins.
We judge MVP year to year. You also said the criteria or the goalposts change year to year for certain players. No, it doesn't. We vote on the MVP. Hold on. We vote on the MVP based on that season. We vote on the MVP based on that season. It is a regular season award. Previous playoff runs have nothing to do with it. It's a regular season award for the most valuable player.
I do not like this disingenuous argument by Redick. Seriously. I mean, are we going to pretend like the MVP was just always about regular season for that particular season? It was never about that. Yeah, obviously, it's a regular season award. That is true. But let's not act like context was not considered in the past. If there was no context, Jordan would have probably won 8 MVPs instead of 5. LeBron would have won more than 4, and I don't even like the guy. Kobe, Shaq, Durant, some of these guys should have won more than 1. But there was always context. Giannis Antetokounmpo was on the verge of winning 3 straight as well. But because of the fact that he flamed out in the playoffs the last season, even the voters were saying it. The voters were saying that he has to perform in the playoffs before he could be given another MVP. So there was always context. Let's not act like there was never context in any of these things, that it was just like, oh, this is how it is this season, so this is how it is for this season. No. There was always context applied to it. In all the MVPs, there was always context.
Dirk Nowitzki led the league in win shares in both 06 and 07. Led the league in offensive win shares in both 06 and 07. So, yeah, he wasn't top 5 or whatever he was, top 10 in scoring his MVP season. The Dallas Mavericks were 67-15. They had the best record in the NBA. In 05, Steve Nash was the driver of the #1 offense in the league, a team that jumped 20 wins and had the best record in the NBA. Okay. In 06 to me is one of the weirdest MVP seasons ever. You could make an argument Nash probably shouldn't have won it, but he was still the driver of the #1 offense in the league. The 2 best teams that year, the Detroit Pistons, 64 wins, the San Antonio Spurs, 63 wins. Guess what? They didn't have their top scorers weren't in the top 20 in the NBA that year. So that was just a strange season. You could have given it to Kobe. You could have given it to Shaq. You could have given it to Tim Duncan. They gave it to Steve Nash. It's not because he was white.
It was just a strange thing. It was just a strange.
But why did you cut it off at 1990 though? Because that was convenient. That was convenient.
I'm just saying. Hold on, time out. It was just a strange thing that it just happened. It was just a strange thing in 2006 when Kobe averaged 31. When he was playing with Kwame Brown and Smush Parker.
And what was the record that year? 42 and 40. They were 42 and 40.
So
let him speak. Was he the most valuable player?
They made the playoffs with that roster. You take Kobe off that team, they probably win 8 games. Okay, so let's make that very, very clear.
The other 2 white guys that Perkins is referring to, Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk Nowitzki fully deserved his MVP, in my opinion, because like before, it was always the best player in the best team. That, for the most part, that's how the MVP was. That was why Derrick Rose won the MVP over LeBron James, because this team had the best record and he was like the only star in the team. So Nowitzki also had that same. They won 67 games, if I remember correctly, 67 games. And he was the best player. Yes, he didn't make the top 10 of in terms of scoring, but he was the best player, and they had an incredible record. Steve Nash, the first season, improved the Phoenix Suns. Joining them, he improved them and exponentially. So I think he deserves that 2005 one. The one that was really weird was the one in 2006, as Reddit mentioned there. It was really, really weird, but some of the other candidates, like Kobe, for example, that averaged 35 points, and like Perkins said, the team wouldn't have even won more than 8 games if Kobe was not there. We have to also remember that Kobe was having that whole Colorado thing hanging over his head. Most voters were still having issues with it at that point in time. So Kobe was never going to win the MVP during that period. And I'm a Kobe fan, so I can objectively accept that. Most of the time, MVP was always the best player on the best team, on the team with the best record.
Now, since you want to talk about when I was saying and preaching about moving the goalposts, the reason I asked that question was for the simple fact that what I'm saying is I don't know the criteria no more. I don't know if it's because it's the #1 seed. I don't know if it's the #6 seed. I don't know how you judging it. Is we judging off of advanced stats or who's the most valuable player? You take him off this team. We don't know.
Now, coming to Jokic. His first MVP was, I would still give it to him. They were 3rd seed. And his biggest competitor at that point in time was Giannis, who, like I said, was having the whole context thing against him in terms of like the fact that he had flamed in the playoffs the past 2 seasons or so. So he had that over his head. So obviously the voters did not want to give him the MVP at that point in time. Embiid did not play enough games. He didn't play enough games during that season. Though the Sixers were 4th seed, he didn't play enough games. Personally, I would have given it to Embiid. That is just me. I just don't believe in players just being great offensively. You have to be excellent defensively for me to look at you as valuable. That is just my opinion. But Jokic, I think I would have still given it to Jokic in that first year. Last year is the one that I think Perkins could have brought in the whole analytics. I think this is where Perkins messed up.
We don't know, but we do know this. Since you do want to bring it up, we do know this, that when it comes to MVP voting, 80% of the voters are white American. 20% are others.
He's right, in my opinion, that the goalpost has just been moving, like the criteria has just been moving all over the place when it comes to Jokic. He's right. But the main problem here is not race. The main problem here is the obsession with analytics. Some people in the NBA circles may say that analytics is great for the game, but in my opinion, it's being used too much. No eye test, nothing, just analytics. Other players were shafted of MVPs because of context. So context should also be applied to Jokic as well. And I personally think Jokic this is the year that he deserves the MVP the most. He should not have won last season. I think if he didn't win last season and is on the verge of winning this season, nobody would really be saying anything about all this. If Embiid was given the MVP, in my opinion, he should have won last season. Meanwhile, Jokic was 6th seed in his conference. Context should be applied. Yeah, maybe in terms of stats, you may have said Jokic blew out Embiid in terms of all the advanced statistics. But you have to use context. So I think the main issue here was that the voters dropped the ball last season. Jokic shouldn't have won the MVP last season. And if that did not happen, all this drama would not have occurred. So what do you guys think about this? Let me know down in the comments. I would like to know what you think in this whole issue. And do you think Jokic is going to win this MVP? I personally think he's going to win. There's nothing that is going to happen. Like his stats are insane. Nothing that is going to happen. Except maybe he goes into a slump and Nuggets start falling on down the table in terms of standings. I just don't see any way he doesn't win it. And it's just going to be weird that a player like Nikola Jokic wins 3 MVPs. The first person since Larry Bird. That is weird. That is just weird to me. That is just my opinion. Anyway, see you next time.